Hey everyone. I'm sure everyone has heard of GeForce Now and the rotting corpse that was Google Stadia. However, there are other players in the field. One such company is Boosteroid. Besides sounding something like a fun retro cabinet arcade game, they also provide the service of game streaming. Who are Boosteroid? Launching in late 2019, they offer up, as mentioned before, the ability to stream games on anything from your phone to your tablet up to your desktop PC if you really want. Now, you may ask yourself why. However, I can think of many reasons one would want to game stream. Perhaps you don't have the funds to afford the ever cost-increasing luxury that is gaming PC life, right? However, for the price of a couple of cheeseburgers a month typically, these companies offer up to 120 FPS streaming. Now, that's only with the case with GeForce Now from Nvidia, unfortunately, but they both, or generally all of them, will say, yes, we offer lag-free gameplay as well. However, that comes with the little asterisk that gameplay varies on your connection speed. Now, what does Boosteroid have to offer over GeForce Now? Honestly, not much at first glance. However, when you look into it, comparing them in equivalent tiers, it does seem to offer up a little bit more than what GeForce Now has to offer. Getting pricing right out of the way, Boosteroid comes in at €749 a month, which was about 8 something and change US. Unfortunately, there was no USD billing here. However, they do have servers all over the world. For instance, I'm in Canada, and while I don't see there being an official server listed in my country, whichever one I am pinging off of does seem to do the trick. Comparing Boosteroid's price to GeForce Now's middle tier option of $9.99 a month, this tier gives you RTX or ray tracing access, but it does not list the card it's using. It's suspected to be about a 2080 or so. Unlike their top tier model of $19.99 a month, which includes an RTX 3080 with the upgrade to a 4080 when available. Each tier has time limits ranging from 1 hour to 8 hours, something that Boosteroid does not have. GeForce Now does have a free tier, which is a basic rig with bog standard access to 1080p 60. That's the resolution and FPS that both Boosteroid and GeForce Now's free and middle tier options offer. You cannot change this. Boosteroid unfortunately hosts no free trial period or promotion at this time, which is a shame because for a service like this, even though you can speed test all you want, a data test is not going to tell you how it feels to play, which is the biggest point of contention I find with game streaming. It just doesn't feel right to most. Being able to describe the feeling of something is a challenge of itself. Some people cannot use wireless controllers at all as the input delay is far too great for them. Most people, myself included, have no such issues with that, obviously, otherwise they would have died out long time ago. Now, however, when you are getting into additional latency beyond what your TV or monitor controller provide to you, that's when things will start to feel a little off from the normal. Now, when I initiate their speed test done through their downloadable app, which is available on all major platforms, including some Linux distros and even Android TV, on a wired connection, I get results averaging above 500 megabits per second and around 30 milliseconds of latency. The recommended latency for Boosteroid is 20 milliseconds or less. This nets me a rating of just okay. Now, doing Nvidia's speed test gets me a connection speed greater than 50 megabits per second, as well as a latency of 25 milliseconds. This is connected to an Eastern North American server. They recommend having 40 milliseconds and the maximum of 80 milliseconds. However, at those latency speeds, I would probably avoid it altogether. Now, not having the recommended speeds for Boosteroid you think would cause an issue, and you're right to some degree. You see, depending on the type of game you're playing or environment that you're playing it in, can impact the sense of your input delay. For instance, playing Call of Duty on my 4K OLED as a 1080p image with keyboard and mouse, I could and feel a severe input delay. This is due to the general faster response of the mouse compared to even a wired joypad. Now, moving over to a wired gamepad, this is where you can hide some of that input delay and it'll feel a little bit more natural to you. However, for competitive scenarios, we can see that if you and the enemy were to press the trigger at the same time, chances are you would lose that fight. Comparing it to Nvidia's offering in Cyberpunk 2077, it does seem to fare a little bit better with the input delay. Now, this would be due to my server connection being better with the GeForce Now servers than Boosteroid. I'll play the clips again here quickly with the sound on so you can get a better idea of the amount of delay happening. Would I recommend you use a streaming service for competitive play? Absolutely not. It is doable, and I was able to play some rounds of Call of Duty and perform a little bit worse than I usually do, which isn't that great to begin with when using a controller. As well, I was able to play a game that I've never played before, Fall Guys. Now, to my surprise, when playing this natively on my ROG Ally, not through my wired connection like I had been using for all my previous tests and being output to my monitor, I found the experience to be amazing. Never having played the game, I had no idea really what to do. However, I was able to quickly orientate myself as I normally would in a game I'm unfamiliar with, and then go from there. Not once during my play did I feel as though I was fighting my controls or any sort of input delay. There was an ever so slight hint of it, however, I was still able to make it to like the final round of Fall Guys in my first time ever playing it, which I would call out a win for Boosteroid. You may be wondering what the connection speeds are with Boosteroid on a wireless connection. While connected to my 5 GHz Wi-Fi access point, as recommended by Boosteroid, I received a 450 megabit per second download and 33 millisecond of latency. Measured again right after, I received the same download speed and 35 milliseconds of latency. Now, my basement router is about 4 feet away from my work area where I did all the wireless testing. When testing it upstairs in a bad coverage area in my home, I received about 150 to 200 megabits per second download speed and anywhere between 30 to 40 milliseconds of latency. This is due to my upstairs area being more so controlled with the access points with a plug-in booster signal. But when I am connected to my router and then sitting upstairs not connected to the plug-in booster, I do get better latency. Again, this service will highly depend on your internet connection and that connection to Boosteroid game servers. I would implore you to take your devices and check them all over your home using their free speed tester. All you have to do is create an account and download the app. Note, after you have your account, you won't have access to any games, even if they're free. You'll have to subscribe to their service either monthly or yearly. Now, if you have a stable connection, what can you expect out of this service? Well, they advertise being able to play Cyberpunk 2077 at ultra ray trace settings, and yeah, honestly I'm impressed that their servers can pull it off, especially since the more expensive mid-tier option from GeForce Now doesn't seem to be able to offer that. To my knowledge, the middle tier option is the equivalent to an RTX 2080. For them, which that would not be able to pull off 1080p 60 ultra ray traced, I don't believe. I don't have the GPU, but I don't think it'll be able to pull it off as easily. Now, the Boosteroid servers report using an RTX 6000 class GPU, which is a workspace class modern Ada Lovelace GPU. The only thing here is you cannot activate frame generation with this card. Boosteroid recommends that you leave the settings as is when you fire up a game. And I can attest that yes, turning on RT overdrive mode is a bad idea, even on their expensive rigs. However, you would think that this performance would be more one-to-one when comparing games. And what I mean is, if I'm using a card that can run Cyberpunk at 1080p 60, ray tracing ultra, Surely Call of Duty Modern Warfare 2 at 1080p would be able to perform better than balanced or low. However, when I set the game to ultra, not even extreme, it was barely able to maintain 60 FPS even with DLSS set to balanced. Now, knowing that Call of Duty does run better on AMD GPUs, but even still, seeing that big of a performance difference in a relatively easy to run game is baffling. Now, getting into the games library, that is where things can become hit and miss. You'll see that in general their library has a decent mix of popular games, however not recent release games. They do have 86 free games on the store that they require no purchase at all, you just have to have the subscription to Boosteroid. However, for other games such as Cyberpunk, The Witcher, and BattleBit, which is surprising if you want to game stream that, you'd need to purchase those on their respective platforms. And likely if you were to make an account and take a look through their list of games, you would find a fair amount of them in your library, such as Steam, GOG, Epic, or EA. And they do seem to have the different versions, so if you own Cyberpunk on GOG, not Steam, you'll be able to play it still. Now, there is something here for everyone in their 500 plus game library, and that's not including the install section, which has over 100 games there as well. These require some sort of like install or launcher setup first to be used, it seems. Think of like the Battle.net launcher, things like that. However, that is how I was able to play Call of Duty and Diablo 4, with Diablo 4 being the much better game to play with this service. Why should you or anyone get a service like Boosteroid? Well, at the end of the day, unfortunately, America doesn't rule the world. Not everyone lives in North America, and that's where GeForce Now does seem to be focusing much of its space on, same as Google Stadia tried. However, being a European-based company, I would assume that a lot of their servers are going to be based there, as opposed to the US or Canada. Now, what I mean is, by someone living in Germany, they may have a much better experience with a service such as Boosteroid, or even the third highest ranking audience location for this channel, being in the UK, they have servers there as well, and I'm sure they could get a much better experience out of this than myself. Now, why should you game stream through a service specifically? Well, there are many reasons. Like mentioned before, gaming desktops are expensive, with laptops being even more so. With the increase of popularity of more affordable gaming handhelds, with a service like this, you can play almost any game you would want that you wouldn't be able to run natively on the Ally or Steam Deck. Or, in the case of Cyberpunk, you can run it at a much higher graphical fidelity than what the handheld can provide. On top of all that, I was able to bring my TDP down to 7 watts or even lower on the Steam Deck, and receive a total system draw power of about 12 watts at 100% screen brightness on the Ally. Now, if you were gaming in bed next to your partner, with the recently released BIOS increasing the fan speed and noise, and the Steam Deck being the hairdryer that it is, you could instead stream it and run it in silent mode and have a great experience. There are obviously many other reasons you would want to subscribe to a gaming stream service, whether it be cost reasons, or maybe you just don't play games that often, but wanted to check out one game. You can do that with a game streaming service, without having to go out and spend potentially thousands of dollars getting the equivalent experience. Sure, that experience may be better, however, for a more casual experience, game streaming is more than perfect in my opinion, when it works. I do wish I could give proper input delay ranges for you, however I just don't have the technology. However, my slow motion videos were enough to at least convey what I mean when I say how it feels to play. You can have a reported 60 FPS through these services, however the frame rate only tells half the story. During my testing of about 3 hours docked and another 2 hours played handheld throughout the home, and a little bit more kind of in between editing and stuff like that, there were minimal moments of stuttering and hitching. I'll play a long clip of some Cyberpunk driving just to hopefully show any moments of stutters or hitches, but again, it will vary on your individual connection. Just because my experience was playable to me does not mean it would be for someone else. I would not be able to play with a keyboard and mouse using this service at my current connection speeds to the servers. Now, however, when playing on a handheld device or especially in a docked experience on a TV, this service is great for my use case. I would have no problem recommending you at least give the app a download either on your phone or your computer and do some Wi-Fi checks. If those seem okay enough, then try a wired connection. Depending on your use case, if you have minimal latency, a desktop solution may work for you, mouse and all. I do not typically use services like these. The only times I really would were to try out Google Stadia when they sent me the free kit, and when I was on a trip when I wanted to play a game with my brother over GeForce Now on my Chromebook in my downtime. Now, the hotel Wi-Fi experience was not that great with the GeForce Now. However, I wouldn't expect it to be any much better with Boosteroid. With that, these services that should theoretically free you from being tethered only really allow you to be untethered in your home mostly. I would not purchase any of these services if you are someone that doesn't have access to a stable connection, or at least reliable access to a stable connection. If your gaming rig were to go down and you didn't have the immediate funds to replace everything, or even like the graphics card or whatever, but still wanted to game, this could be an option. However, if you're on frequent business trips relying on cheap hotel Wi-Fi, this cannot be a reliable service for you, only based on your reliable connection. To wrap this video up, I would absolutely recommend this service. Even with my only okay connection, I was still able to enjoy some Cyberpunk in my downtime, which is why getting a sponsored deal like this is awesome. Who wouldn't love to work on a project where they just get to play the games instead of overanalyzing everything? It was a nice change of pace for me and allowed for me to progress the story in Cyberpunk and explore a new guilty pleasure that is Fall Guys. So if you are interested in any of this, just know it's not without faults. You will potentially get hitches and stutters here and there. So again, for competitive play, I wouldn't recommend that. So I would suggest you check into your local options and see which provides the best service and speed in your area. This will always differ. If you happen to like what Boosteroid has to offer, you can make a free account on their website and download the appropriate app to complete a speed test. Now, if you use the link below, just know it is an affiliate link, and I will earn a little something if you choose to subscribe to their service. No other monetary compensation was received. All that was given was free, limited access to their service. As always, though, I hope you all have a great day.